Listen carefully, because something about this moment is not ordinary. Something about the way you found this message, the exact timing, the exact day, it's too precise to ignore. You didn't just click on this. You were guided here. And deep down you already feel it, don't you? There has been a weight on you lately. A kind of heaviness you can't fully explain. It's not just physical. It's not just emotional. It's deeper than that. It follows you into your quiet moments. It sits with you when you're alone. It lingers even when everything around you looks fine. You've tried to push through it. You've told yourself, it's just stress. You've told yourself, it'll pass. But it hasn't passed, has it? Because this burden was never just natural. It was spiritual. And now, heaven is stepping in. There is a reason why June 19th is being marked in the spirit. Not next month. Not someday in the future. Now, before this month ends, something is shifting. Something is breaking. Something that hath been sitting on your life, quietly, persistently, is about to be lifted. And the truth is, you've been carrying this longer than you were supposed to. You've been strong for too long. You've been silent for too long. You've been enduring what God never intended you to carry alone. And here's the part that might shake you. What if I told you this burden was never meant to stay this long? What if I told you there was a moment already assigned in heaven where it would be removed? And that moment is approaching right now. Because that's exactly what this is. This is not random encouragement. This is not just another message scrolling past your screen. This is a divine interruption. You see, there are moments when heaven moves quietly, and then there are moments when heaven says, enough is enough. This is one of those moments. Something has reached its limit. Something that has been weighing on your spirit, whether it's confusion, emotional pain, financial pressure, spiritual exhaustion, or even something you can't put into words, has reached its expiration date. And you are standing at the edge of that expiration. But here's what you need to understand: when God removes a burden, it's not always loud at first. It doesn't always come with thunder or visible signs. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, a stirring, a message like this that pulls your attention and won't let go. That's what this is. This is the moment where your spirit is being alerted before the shift fully happens. Because when it does happen, it will feel almost surreal, like suddenly breathing deeper after you didn't realize how suffocated you were. Have you noticed it? The exhaustion that doesn't match your activity. The emotions that feel heavier than they should. The constant sense that something is off but you can't explain it. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Because what you've been feeling is what heaven is now addressing. And Archangel Michael speaks in this moment, not gently, but with authority. Be ready. What has weighed on you is about to be removed. But you must not turn away now. Stay alert. Stay aligned. Stay open. This is your signal. Not to fear, but to prepare. Because before this month ends, before the calendar turns, before you even fully understand what's happening, God is going to take something off of you that you've been carrying far too long. And when it lifts, you will realize just how heavy it really was. So don't scroll away. Don't dismiss this moment. Because the timing is not random. It's divine. And you are right on time. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1919 is now activated around you. You've been holding something, and the truth is, not even everyone around you knows how heavy it has been. You've smiled when you needed to. You've shown up when you had no energy left. You've carried conversations, responsibilities, expectations, and emotions that no one ever paused to ask you about. And over time, That weight didn't just stay on the surface, it settled deep within you. It's the kind of weight that doesn't always have a name. Sometimes it shows up as overthinking that won't stop. Sometimes it's the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Sometimes it's the quiet sadness that appears in moments that should feel peaceful. And sometimes it's the constant pressure to keep going, even when something inside you is asking for rest. You've told yourself to stay strong. You've told yourself that others have it worse. You've convinced yourself that you'll deal with it later. But later never came and the weight stayed. And here's what makes it even heavier: you didn't just carry your own burdens. You carried what others placed on you too. Expectations that were never yours. Emotional wounds that weren't yours to heal. Responsibilities that stretched you beyond your limits. You became the one people leaned on, but who did you lean on? There were moments when you felt like breaking, but you held it together. Moments when you wanted to speak, but you stayed silent. Moments when you needed support, but instead you gave it to someone else. And slowly, without realizing it, you became overloaded, not just physically, but spiritually. This is why it's felt so draining. Because this burden wasn't just about circumstances, it was about accumulation. Layer after layer, day after day, but after thought, until it became something that followed you everywhere. Have you noticed how even small things started to feel overwhelming? How your patience felt thinner than before? How your peace felt harder to access? That's not weakness. That's weight. And for some of you, this burden has been connected to something deeper, something spiritual. A sense that something hasn't been right for a while. A feeling that something has been pressing against your spirit, trying to slow you down, distract you, or keep you in a cycle of heaviness. You couldn't fully explain it, but you felt it. Because not all burdens are visible. Some are carried in silence. Some are carried in the mind. Some are carried in the heart. And some are carried in the spirit. And you've been carrying all three. That's why even when things looked okay on the outside, something inside you still felt unsettled. That's why even in moments of rest, your mind kept racing. That's why even when you tried to move forward, something felt like it was holding you back. This wasn't just prayer. This was a burden that stayed longer than it should have. But here is the truth that you need to hear clearly: you were never meant to carry this alone. And you were never meant to carry it this long. There comes a point where endurance is no longer strength, it becomes overload. And heaven had been watching you carry this, watching you push through, watching you stay faithful even when it was hard. Nothing you've carried has gone unnoticed. Every silent tear, every unspoken frustration, every moment you felt like giving up but did. It all matters. And the reason this message is reaching you now is because that weight has reached its limit. The burden you've been carrying is not being ignored anymore. It is being addressed. But before it is removed, you are being made aware of it. Because sometimes, you don't fully realize how heavy something is until you pause and acknowledge it. Sometimes, you've been in survival mode for so long that you forgot what it feels like to live without pressure. And that's what's about to change. You are about to experience a release, but this release will make sense only when you recognize what you've been holding on to. So let yourself be honest for a moment. Acknowledge the stress. Acknowledge the emotional weight. Acknowledge the pressure you've been under. Not to stay in it, but to prepare to let it go. Because what God is about to do is not partial. It is not temporary. It is not surface level. It is a removal, a lifting, a breaking of something that hath been sitting on your life for too long. And when it begins, you will feel the difference. The mind will quiet. The heart will lighten. The spirit will breathe again. But for now, recognize this truth. You've been carrying more than you were ever meant to carry. And heaven is saying it's time to put it down. Type "I release this burden" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now surrounding you. There is a question that has quietly followed you through this entire season, even if you never said it out loud. A question that rose in your thoughts during your lowest moments, when the weight felt unbearable and the silence felt too long. And that question is simple: why? Why did this have to be so heavy? Why did it last this long? Why did it feel like you were carrying more than others around you? And the truth is, you deserve an answer. Because this burden was not random. It was not meaningless. And it was not sent to destroy you, even though at times it felt like it might. There was a purpose in it, even if that purpose was hidden while you were walking through it. You see, not everything that is allowed is meant to harm you. Some things are allowed to reveal you. There were parts of your strength that could not surface without pressure. There were depths of your faith that could not activate without uncertainty. There were layers of your identity that could not be uncovered without discomfort. And this is as heavy as it have been revealing all of that. You have become more aware, more discerning, more sensitive to what drains you and what aligns with you. Even if you didn't realize it at first, something inside you has been sharpening. Because when you carry a burden for a long time, you begin to see clearly what matters and what doesn't. You begin to recognize what is truly yours to hold and what never belonged to you in the first place. And that clarity is not accidental. That clarity is preparation. There were things attached to your life that needed to be exposed before they could be removed. Patterns that needed to be recognized. Attachments that needed to be questioned. Cycles that needed to be interrupted. And without this season, you may have continued carrying them without ever noticing their weight. That's the part most people don't see. Sometimes, the burden reveals what comfort hides. There were environments that felt normal until they started draining you. There were people you trusted until something in your spirit began to feel unsettled. There were habits you carried until they no longer aligned with who you were becoming. And instead of ignoring it, you felt it. That discomfort you experienced, that internal resistance, that quiet voice telling you something wasn't right, that was not confusion. That was awakening. Because growth does not always feel peaceful in the beginning. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes it feels like tension. Sometimes it feels like everything that once felt stable is shifting all at once. But that shift is not meant to harm you. It is meant to reposition you. You were being moved out of alignment with things that could not go where you are going next. And the only way to separate you from them was to make the weight noticeable. That's why it became heavy. That's why it became uncomfortable. That's why it became impossible to ignore. Because once you recognize the weight, you are no longer willing to carry it the same way. And this is where everything begins to change. Because now, you are not the same person who first picked up that burden. You are more aware. You are more alert. You are more aligned with what your spirit is telling you. And that awareness is what allows the release to happen. You see, God does not just remove burdens, He prepares you to live without them. Because if the burden was removed too early, before you understood it, there is a chance you would pick it up again. There is a chance you would return to the same patterns, the same attachments, the same cycles. But now you see it differently. Now you feel it differently. Now you know what it has been doing to you. And that knowledge is power. Not power to control everything, but power to choose differently. Power to step away from what drains you. Power to stop carrying what was never yours. Power to recognize when something is misaligned. And that is exactly why this moment is happening now. Because you are ready. Ready to release. Ready to let go. Ready to move forward without that weight following you. This was never about punishment. This was about preparation. Preparation for a version of you that is lighter, clearer, and more aligned than before. Preparation for a season where you no longer carry what breaks you down, but instead walk in what builds you up. And now that preparation is complete, the lesson has been learned. The awareness has been activated. The weight has been acknowledged. And that means one thing: the burden no longer has a reason to stay. Type "I understand the season" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3030 is now activated around your life. As this revelation settles into your spirit, understand this truth. Every time you help carry this message forward, you are lifting a burden off someone else's soul. There are people right now, drowning in silence, waiting for a word like this to reach them, and your support becomes the very vessel God uses to deliver that light. The word says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." And today, that bread is your act of giving, releasing life into places you may never see but heaven records. I feel this strongly in this moment. I am stepping into obedience. I am becoming a vessel for God's reach. I am helping someone break free. This is not just support. This is a prophetic act that echoes the very message you just received. Because as God removes burdens from you, He calls you to help remove them from others. Do not delay this moment, because what you release now becomes a seed that heaven multiplies beyond your understanding. I declare over you that as you give, rivers of provision, peace, and clarity will begin to flow back into your life. Step into this now, act in faith, and release your seed through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen. Something is happening around you right now, even if you cannot fully see it yet. There is a movement taking place beneath the surface of your everyday life, beyond what your eyes can perceive, and beyond what your mind can immediately explain. And the reason you've been feeling unsettled, the reason things have felt different, is because this shift has already begun. This is not something that is going to happen someday in the distant future. This is something that has already been set into motion. The moment you started recognizing the weight, the moment you began to question what you were carrying, the moment your spirit started resisting what once felt normal, that was the beginning of the shift. Because spiritual change does not start with what you see. It starts with what you sense. You may have noticed it in small ways at first. A sudden awareness that something no longer feels right. A growing discomfort in places that once felt familiar. A quiet pull toward stillness, reflection, or even distance from certain people or situations. These are not random feelings. These are signals. Signals that something is being rearranged. You are not imagining the shift. You are responding to it. And what you are responding to is the movement of something being lifted, something being loosened, something that has been attached to you beginning to lose its hold. Because when God decides to remove a burden, there is a process. It does not always happen in one instant. There is a preparation, a separating, a shifting of things that must move out of alignment before the full release can take place. And that is exactly where you are right now. In the middle of that shift, there are things that are quietly being moved away from you. Not always dramatically, not always in a way that is obvious to others, but in a way that your spirit can feel. Conversations may feel different. Connections may feel weaker. Situations that once held your attention may begin to lose their grip. This is not loss. This is release. Because the burden you've been carrying is not just being taken off of you, it is being separated from everything that kept it in place. And that includes patterns, attachments, and even certain environments that reinforce that weight. That's why it can feel uncomfortable at times, because as the burden loosens, so does your connection to what was holding it there. And when that connection starts to shift, it can feel unfamiliar, even disorienting. But do not mistake that feeling. This is not confusion. This is transition. You are moving from a state of heaviness into a state of lightness, and there is always a moment in between where things feel uncertain. A moment where the old is no longer fitting, but the new is not fully settled yet. That moment is where you are now. And this is where many people become distracted. This is where many people start to question what they are feeling, or try to return to what is familiar simply because it feels known. But you cannot return to what you have already outgrown. You cannot go back to carrying something that is already being removed, because the shift is not asking for your permission. It is happening, and the more you become aware of it, the more you allow it, the smoother this transition will be. Right now, things are being aligned in ways you cannot yet see. Paths are being cleared. Obstacles are being weakened. Pressure that once felt constant is beginning to lose its intensity. Even if it feels subtle, it is happening. And you may begin to notice moments where you feel lighter without explanation. Moments where your mind feels clearer. Moments where something that once triggered you no longer holds the same power. Those are not coincidences. Those are confirmations. Because the burden is not just going to disappear suddenly without any sign. You are being shown, piece by piece, that it is already losing its grip. And as this continues, you will begin to realize something important. The weight that once defined your experience is no longer in control. It is no longer deciding how you feel, how you think, or how you move. Because it is being removed from your life at its root. And this is why it is so important for you to stay present right now. Not distracted, not disconnected, not dismissive of what you are feeling. Because what you are feeling is real, and it is leading you into something new. This is the moment where the shift becomes undeniable, where what you sensed begins to take form, where what was internal begins to reflect externally. And when that happens, you will not need anyone to explain it to you. You will feel it. You will recognize it. You will know that something has changed. But for now, stay aware. Stay grounded. Stay open to what is unfolding. Because this shift is not random. It is intentional. And it is happening for you. Type "I feel the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4040 is now active around your life. There are moments before a breakthrough where nothing looks dramatically different on the outside, but everything begins to feel different on the inside. And if you pay close attention, you will notice that these moments are not random. They are signals, subtle, quiet, but undeniable indicators that something is shifting and that what you've been carrying is about to be released. You may not have recognized them at first, but they have already started appearing in your life. One of the first signs is a change in how you respond to things that once affected you deeply. Situations that used to trigger stress, frustration, or emotional heaviness begin to lose their intensity. It's not that the situation has completely changed, it's that your connection to it has changed you. You are no longer reacting from the same place, and that is a clear sign that the burden attached to it is weakening. Another sign is a growing sense of awareness. You are beginning to see things more clearly than before. Patterns that once went unnoticed are now obvious. You are recognizing what drains you, what exhausts you, and what no longer aligns with where you are going. This clarity is not accidental. It is part of the release process. Because you cannot fully let go of something until you see it for what it is. And now you are seeing it. There is also a shift in your energy. Even if you still feel tired at times, there are moments where you feel a sudden lightness, a brief sense of peace that comes without explanation. These moments may not last long yet, but they are previews of what is coming. They are reminders that the heaviness you've been feeling is not permanent. It is already being lifted. You may also notice changes in your environment. Certain conversations may start to fade. Certain people may become distant. Certain situations may begin to resolve on their own, without the struggle that once surrounded them. This can feel confusing at first, especially if you are used to holding everything together. But understand this clearly: not everything that is leaving is a loss. Some things are being removed because they were connected to the burden you were carrying. And as that burden is lifted, those connections cannot remain the same. There is also a deeper internal sign that cannot be ignored, a quiet sense of expectation. Even if you cannot explain why, there is a part of you that feels like something is about to change. It may come as a thought, a feeling, or just a knowing that you cannot fully put into words. That feeling is not imagination. That feeling is alignment. Because your spirit is recognizing what your mind has not fully processed yet. It is sensing the shift, sensing the release, sensing that what you've been carrying is reaching its end. And this is why you may feel a mix of emotions right now. Moments of hope followed by moments of doubt. Moments of peace followed by moments of uncertainty. This is not confusion, this is transition. You are moving out of one state and into another. And in that movement, there is always a period where both feelings exist at the same time. But there is one more sign that is perhaps the most important of all. You are no longer willing to carry this the same way. Something inside you has changed. There is a resistance now. A quiet refusal to keep holding onto what has been draining you. Even if you haven't fully let it go yet, you can feel that you are reaching a point where you cannot continue like this. That is not frustration. That is readiness. Because before a burden is removed, there is always a moment where you internally release your attachment to it. A moment where you decide, consciously or unconsciously, that you are done carrying it. And that moment has already begun for you. This is why everything is aligning now. The awareness, the emotional shift, the changes in your environment, the growing sense that something is about to happen. These are not separate events. They are connected. They are all pointing to the same truth. The burden you've been carrying is reaching its end. And as this continues, you will notice the signs becoming stronger, the clarity becoming sharper, the peace becoming more consistent, the heaviness becoming less familiar, until one day you will realize that what once weighed you down is no longer there. Not because you forced it, not because you figured everything out, but because it was removed. And when that moment comes, it will not feel dramatic. It will feel natural, like something that was always meant to happen finally did. So stay aware of these signs. Do not ignore them. Do not dismiss them, because they are showing you that the shift is real, and the release is closer than you think. Type I see the signs in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5050 is now activated around your life. Now it is time to understand something deeper, because the burden you've been carrying is not just a feeling. It is not just stress. It is not just a temporary situation. It is made up of specific things that have attached themselves to your life over time. And what God is doing right now is not general. It is precise. It is intentional. It is targeted. Because when God removes a burden, He does not just take away the weight, He removes the source of that weight. There are patterns in your life that have repeated longer than they should have. Cycles that kept showing up in different forms but carried the same outcome. You may have noticed it without fully understanding it. The same type of stress, the same emotional drain, the same situations that seemed to reset just when you thought you were moving forward. Those patterns are being broken, not temporarily but at their root, because you were never meant to live in repetition of what exhausts you. You were never meant to carry cycles that keep you in the same place while everything around you moves forward. And now, those cycles are being interrupted. There are also emotional weights that have been sitting on your heart for too long. Things you never fully processed. Feelings you pushed aside because you had to keep going. Moments that stayed with you even when you tried to move past them. Those emotional layers have been adding to the burden you've been feeling. And now they are being lifted. Not by force, not all at once in a way that overwhelms you, but in a way that releases them from your spirit so they no longer control how you feel or how you respond. You are not being asked to carry those emotions forward anymore. You are being freed from them. There are also mental burdens that have been weighing on you. Overthinking, constant analysis, thoughts that repeat themselves without resolution, questions that circle your mind without clear answers. This mental weight hath been draining your energy even when nothing was physically happening. That is being addressed, because your mind was not meant to be a place of constant pressure. It was meant to be a place of clarity, and what has been clouding it is now being removed. You will begin to notice the difference. The thoughts will slow down. The noise will quiet. The clarity will return. Not because you forced it, but because what was creating the noise is no longer there. There are also connections that have been tied to this burden. Not every connection in your life has been aligned with your growth. Some have been attached to the very weight you've been carrying. Some have reinforced it, even without intention. Some have kept you in patterns that no longer serve you. And as this burden is removed, those connections cannot remain the same. This does not always mean dramatic endings. Sometimes it means distance. Sometimes it means less interaction. Sometimes it means a shift in how you engage. But understand this clearly: what is leaving your life right now is not being taken from you. It is being released from you, because it cannot go where you are going next. There are also unseen pressures that have been influencing your experience. Things you could not fully explain. Moments where everything felt heavier than it should have. Situations where your energy felt drained without a clear reason. That pressure is being lifted, because not everything that affects you is visible. And not everything that burdens you comes from what you can identify immediately. But God sees it clearly. And what He's removing is not just what you understand, but also what you don't. This is why the release you are about to experience will feel deeper than expected. It will not just affect one area of your life. It will touch multiple areas at once. Because the burden was not isolated. And the removal will not be either. You may begin to notice that things feel lighter across the board. Your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, your interactions all shifting at the same time. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. Because what is being removed is everything that was contributing to the weight you've been carrying. And once it is gone, it will not return in the same way. This is not a temporary break. This is a transition into a different state of being. A state where you are no longer carrying what drains you. A state where you are no longer holding on to what was never meant to stay. And this is why this moment matters. Because you are not just experiencing relief. You are experiencing removal. And once something is removed at this level, it does not reattach unless you choose to pick it up again. But now you know better. Now you see it clearly. Now you recognize what it was doing to you. And that awareness is what keeps it from returning. So as this process continues, allow it. Do not resist it. Do not question it. Because what is being taken from you is exactly what you no longer need. And what remains will finally feel like peace. Type IT is being removed in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6060 is now activated around your life. There is something you need to understand about this moment. You are standing in something that explains why, despite everything you've carried, you are still here. Still moving. Still searching. Still open to receiving something better. It is your faith. Not perfect faith. Not unshakable. Unwavering. Always confident faith. But the kind of faith that stayed, even when everything else felt uncertain. The kind of faith that didn't always speak loudly, but refused to disappear. The kind of faith that held on, even when you questioned, even when you felt tired, even when you didn't fully understand what was happening around you. It is the faith that brought you here. Because the truth is, this transition you are in right now did not start with external change. It started with something internal. It started the moment you chose, even in a small way, not to give up. There were moments when it would have been easier to shut down completely. Moments when it would have been easier to stop believing that anything could shift. Moments when the weight felt so constant that you considered accepting it as permanent. What you didn't. Something in you resisted that conclusion. Something in you kept looking for answers, kept hoping for relief, kept believing that what you were experiencing was not the final outcome. That something's your faith. And that faith, even in its quietest form, has been working behind the scenes. Because faith is not just about what you say or what you declare. It is about what you continue to hold on to when nothing around you confirms it yet. It is about what you allow yourself to believe, even when your current reality feels heavy. And right now, your faith is aligning with what God is doing. This is why the shift is happening. Because faith creates space for movement. It opens a path for change. It allows what is unseen to begin taking form in your life. You may not have realized it, but every time you kept going instead of giving up, every time you paused instead of reacting, every time you questioned the weight instead of accepting it, you were participating in this transition. You were preparing yourself for release. Because faith does not remove the burden instantly. It positions you for the moment when the burden is ready to be removed. And that moment is now. But here is what you need to hear clearly. You do not need more faith than you already have to receive what is coming. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to reach a certain level of belief. You do not need to have everything figured out. Your faith as it is right now is enough. Because it has already brought you to this point. And now, instead of trying to hold everything together, your role is shifting. You are no longer being asked to carry the weight. You are being asked to trust the release. I can feel unfamiliar. Because you have been in a state of holding on for so long that letting go may feel uncertain at first. You may find yourself questioning whether things are really changing. You may catch yourself going back to old thought patterns out of habit. But this is where your faith continues to play its role. Not by forcing belief, but by allowing what is happening to unfold without resistance. Faith, in this moment, looks like allowing the shift instead of analyzing it. It looks like accepting the lightness when it begins to appear, instead of questioning it. It looks like moving forward without trying to carry what has already been removed. Because sometimes, the hardest part is not carrying the burden, it is trusting that it is no longer yours. And that is where you are right now. You are learning how to exist without the weight. You are learning how to move without the pressure. You are learning how to think without the constant heaviness following you. And this learning process is supported by your faith. The same faith that carried you through the weight will now carry you through the release. But this time, it will feel different. Because instead of holding you in place, it will move you forward. You will begin to notice that decisions feel clearer, that your responses feel calmer, that your sense of direction feels more stable. Not because everything around you has instantly changed, but because what was clouding you is no longer present, and that clarity is something your faith has been preparing you for. So do not underestimate what you've already done. Do not overlook the strength it took to keep going. Do not dismiss the quiet belief that stayed with you, even when things felt uncertain, because that is what made this moment possible. And now, as this transition continues, let your faith shift with it. From holding on to letting go, from enduring to receiving, from carry to trusting. Because what is happening now does not require effort. It requires allowance. And your faith is already aligned with that. Type "My faith is enough" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7070 is now activated around your life. As this burden begins to lift, as the shift becomes more real, as you start to feel even the slightest sense of lightness returning, there is something you must be aware of. Because right before a complete release happens, there is often a final moment of resistance. A subtle effort to make you question what is already changing. And if you are not aware of it, you may mistake it for something going wrong, when in reality, it is confirmation that something is ending. This is the moment where distractions increase. You may notice your thoughts becoming louder again for a short period of time. Old worries may try to resurface. Situations you thought were settling may suddenly feel active again. Conversations may trigger emotions you believed you had already processed. It can feel confusing, almost as if the weight is trying to return. But understand this clearly: it is not returning. It is reacting. Because when something is being removed from your life, it does not leave without resistance. The patterns, the thoughts, the attachments that once had a hold on you will attempt to regain your focus one last time. Not because they still have power, but because they are losing it. And this is where your awareness becomes critical. Because what looks like a setback is often just a test of your alignment. You may find yourself questioning everything again, wondering if the shift is real, wondering if things are actually changing, wondering if you are imagining the progress you felt just moments before. This is not failure. This is interference. A final attempt to pull you back into the same cycle you are already stepping out of. And the way it works is subtle. It does not come in obvious forms. It comes through small things that seem familiar. A thought that repeats itself. A situation that demands your attention. A conversation that pulls you into old emotional patterns. It tries to get you to react the same way you used to. Because if you react the same way, you reconnect to the same weight. But if you respond differently, you break the connection completely. And that is what this moment is about. It is not about fighting the distraction. It is about recognizing it and not giving it your energy. You do not need to engage with every thought. You do not need to solve every situation immediately. You do not need to return to the same emotional state just because something feels familiar. Because what you are feeling right now is not a return to the burden. It is the final release of it. Think of it this way: when something has been attached for a long time, its removal can create a temporary sense of instability. Not because you are losing something important, but because your system is adjusting to the absence of what was once constant. And that adjustment can feel like confusion if you do not recognize it for what it is. But you are not losing control. You are gaining freedom. And freedom can feel unfamiliar at first. This is why it is so important for you to stay grounded in what you already know. You have already felt the shift. You have already recognized the signs. You have already understood what you have been carrying. Do not let a temporary moment of distraction make you forget that. Because this is the moment where many people go back not because they have to, but because they react without realizing what is happening. But you are not going back. You are moving forward. And this moment is simply part of the process. A final clearing. A final separation. A final attempt that will not succeed unless you give it your attention. So when the thoughts come, observe them, but do not hold on to them. When the emotions rise, seal them, but do not let them take over. When situations try to pull you back in, acknowledge them, but do not return to the same patterns. Because you are no longer the same person who carried that burden. You are aware now. You are aligned now. You are already in the process of release. And nothing that appears in this moment can stop what has already been set in motion. This is the final phase before the full lifting happens. And once it passes, the difference will be undeniable. The quiet will feel deeper. The clarity will feel stronger. The peace will feel more stable. Because the distraction will be gone along with the burden it was trying to hold in place. So stay steady. Stay aware. Stay aligned with what you already know is happening. Because this moment is not here to stop you. It is here to confirm that you are closer than ever. Type "I will not be distracted" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8080 is now activated around your life. As you stand in this moment of awareness, understand that your obedience is not just for you. It is a light meant to reach others who are still trapped in their distractions. Every time you support this mission, you are helping break chains off someone who cannot yet see clearly. The word declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and right now, your giving becomes a seed planted into someone else's breakthrough. I feel this rising strongly. I am choosing to act. I am choosing to release. I am choosing to be part of God's work on the earth. This is not just a contribution. This is a divine response to the very message you just received, because as burdens are lifted from you, you are called to lift others. Do not hesitate in this moment, because heaven moves through action, not delay. I declare that as you give, doors will open, clarity will increase, and peace will multiply over your life. Step into this now and release your seed through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen. There is a moment that is approaching in your life, a moment that will not arrive with noise, not with chaos, not with overwhelming emotion, but with something far more powerful. It will arrive with a sense of lightness that feels almost unfamiliar at first. A quiet, steady freedom that replaces the pressure you have been carrying for so long. And when it happens, you may pause and ask yourself, what changed? Because the shift will not feel forced. It will not feel like something you had to fight for in that exact moment. It will feel like something that was already in motion, finally reaching you. This is what happens when a burden is truly removed. You don't just notice the absence of weight, you begin to experience the presence of peace. The thoughts that once felt overwhelming begin to slow down. The constant pressure you felt in your mind begins to fade. Situations that once felt heavy no longer carry the same emotional charge. And for the first time in a long time, you feel like you can breathe without something pressing against you. This is not temporary relief. This is transition into a different state. Because when God removes a burden, He does not leave an empty space filled with confusion. He replaces it with clarity. He replaces it with calm. He replaces it with a sense of stability that you may not have felt in a long time. And at first this can feel unfamiliar, because you have adapted to carrying weight. You have learned how to function under pressure. You have adjusted to a constant sense of responsibility, stress, or emotional heaviness that has been your normal for so long that when it is gone, there is a moment where your mind tries to look for it again. You may find yourself thinking, should I be worried about something? You may catch yourself expecting the heaviness to return. But it doesn't. And that is when it begins to settle in. And this is real. That something has truly changed. You will begin to move differently without even trying. Your responses will feel calmer. Your decisions will feel clearer. You will no longer feel the need to overanalyze every situation or carry every outcome on your shoulders. Because that weight is no longer attached to you. You are stepping into a space where you are not constantly managing pressure but instead allowing life to flow without forcing control. This is what freedom feels like. Not chaotic, not overwhelming, but steady. Grounded. Quietly powerful. And as this lightness settles into your life, you will begin to notice something else, your energy returning. Not just physical energy, but emotional and mental energy. The kind that allows you to focus again. The kind that allows you to think clearly. The kind that allows you to engage with life without feeling drained before you even begin. You may even start to feel a sense of motivation returning. Not forced motivation, not something you have to push yourself into, but a natural desire to move forward, to do things that once felt difficult, to reconnect with parts of yourself that felt distant. That is because the burden was not just weighing you down, it was holding your energy in place. And now that it is gone, that energy is free to move again. You will also begin to notice how your perspective shifts. Situations that once felt overwhelming will now feel manageable. Problems that once felt heavy will now feel like something you can approach with clarity instead of stress. Not because everything around you has completely changed, but because you have changed. Because the weight that distorted your perspective is no longer there. And this is where the true transformation becomes visible. You are no longer reacting from pressure. You are responding from clarity. You are no longer holding everything together out of necessity. You are moving forward with intention. And that difference is everything. This is what it means to step into divine lightness. It is not about escaping life's challenges completely. It is about no longer carrying what was never meant for you in the first place. It is about moving through life without unnecessary weight attached to every step you take. And as this becomes your new normal, you will realize something important. You were never meant to live under constant heaviness. You were never meant to carry everything alone. You were never meant to feel like every step required effort just to maintain balance. That was never your design. And now you are returning to what was always meant for you. A state of peace. A state of clarity. A state of freedom. And once you experience this, you will not want to go back. Not because you are forcing yourself forward, but because you will finally understand what it feels like to live without that burden. So as this lightness continues to settle into your life, allow yourself to receive it fully. Do not question it. Do not resist it. Do not look for the weight that is no longer there. Because what you are stepping into now is real. And it is here to stay. Type "I receive this freedom" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9090 is now activated around your life. What you are stepping into now is not just the absence of a burden, it is the beginning of a new season. And this is where many people misunderstand what God is doing. They think the breakthrough is only about what is being removed. But the truth is, the removal is only the preparation for what is about to be introduced. Because God does not take something away without replacing it with something greater. And what is being prepared for you right now is not random. It is not temporary. It is not uncertain. It is a season that has been forming while you were still carrying the weight. A season that was waiting for the exact moment when you were ready to receive it without being held back by what you were previously carrying. This is why the timing matters. Because if this new season had arrived while you were still holding that burden, you would not have been able to fully step into it. You would have tried to manage both at the same time. You would have tried to move forward while still being pulled backward, and that tension would have limited what you could receive. But now that limitation is being removed, and what is coming next will feel different. You will begin to notice opportunities that align more naturally with you. Situations that do not require you to force your way through them. Doors that open without the same resistance you experienced before. Not because everything suddenly becomes effortless, but because you are no longer carrying what was slowing you down. There is also restoration that is taking place, not just externally but internally. Your sense of direction will begin to return. Your clarity will begin to stabilize. The things that once felt confusing will begin to make sense in ways they didn't before. You will start to see why certain things had to end, why certain delays happened, why certain paths did not work out. Not all at once, but gradually. And that understanding will not come with frustration. It will come with peace. Because you will recognize that what felt like setbacks were actually part of the preparation for where you are now. There is also a shift in how you will approach life, moving forward. You will no longer feel the need to carry everything on your own. You will no longer feel responsible for outcomes that were never yours to control. You will begin to move with a sense of trust instead of pressure, and that trust will change everything. Because when you are not operating from stress, your decisions become clearer. Your timing becomes more aligned. Your actions become more intentional. You are no longer reacting to what is happening around you. You are responding from a place of stability. This is what this new season brings. Stability. Not in the sense that nothing will ever challenge you again, but in the sense that you will not be shaken in the same way. You will not be pulled into the same cycles. You will not be weighed down by the same patterns. Because you are not the same person who entered the previous season. You have changed. And this new season will reflect that change. You will also begin to notice a sense of flow returning to your life. Things will begin to move again. Not in a rushed or overwhelming way, but in a steady, consistent way. Progress that feels natural. Movement that feels aligned. And this flow will not feel forced. It will feel right. Because it is connected to where you are meant to be, not where you were trying to stay. This is also a season of unexpected blessings. Not necessarily in the way you imagined, but in the way that aligns with what you truly need. Things showing up at the right time. Support appearing when you need it. Answers coming when you are ready to receive them. And you may find yourself looking back at this moment, realizing that what you thought was a difficult season was actually a transition into something better. Because that is exactly what this is. A transition. From heaviness to lightness. From confusion to clarity. From pressure to peace. And as this new season begins to unfold, you will not need to force it to happen. It will meet you where you are. All you need to do is remain open to it. Do not try to control every step. Do not try to predict every outcome. Because what is being prepared for you does not require struggle to receive. It requires alignment. And you are already moving into that alignment. So, as this season begins to reveal itself, allow yourself to step into it fully. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Without looking back at what has already been removed. Because what is ahead of you is not just better. It is meant for you. Type "I step into my NEW season" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your life. As this burden is lifted, as the weight that once followed you begins to fade, as you step more fully into this sense of clarity and peace, there is something important you must understand. Because while God is the one removing the burden, there is a responsibility that now shifts to you. Not a heavy responsibility, not something that brings pressure back into your life, but a conscious awareness of how you move forward from this point. Because once something hath been removed, the space it leaves behind matters. And what you choose to do with that space will determine whether this freedom becomes permanent or temporary. You are no longer the same person who first carried that burden. You have seen what it does. You have felt how it drains you. You have experienced the weight of it over time. And now that it is gone, you have the awareness to recognize it if it ever tries to return. That awareness is your protection. Because the truth is not everything that was removed will try to come back in the same form. Sometimes it returns subtly, through familiar thoughts, through familiar patterns, through situations that seem harmless at first but carry the same weight underneath. And this is where your responsibility begins. Not to fight everything, not to become guarded in fear, but to stay aligned with what you now know. You have learned what drains you. You have learned what misaligns you. You have learned what places unnecessary pressure on your mind, your emotions, and your spirit. And now you are being asked to honor that knowledge. There may be moments where you are tempted to go back to what feels familiar, not because it is right for you, but because it is known. There may be situations where it feels easier to take on more than you should, to carry more than is yours, to return to the same habits that once defined how you handled things. But you cannot go back to that version of yourself. Not because you are being restricted, but because you have outgrown it. And this is what protecting your peace looks like. It is not about isolating yourself from everything. It is about recognizing what belongs in your life now and what does not. It is about setting limits where you once had none. It is about pausing where you once reacted immediately. It is about choosing clarity over confusion, even when confusion feels familiar. Because peace is not something you find once and then forget about. It is something you maintain through awareness. And right now, you are in a position where that awareness is stronger than it has ever been before. You will begin to notice things faster. You will sense when something is off before it becomes overwhelming. You will recognize when a situation is trying to pull you back into old patterns. And in those moments your response will define everything. Not the situation itself, but how you engage with it. Because you now have the ability to choose differently. To step back instead of stepping in. To release instead of holding on. To observe instead of absorbing. And those choices, small as they may seem, will keep you aligned with the freedom you are now experiencing. There is also something else you must remember. You are not responsible for carrying what belongs to others. This is where the burden often begins again, when you take on things that were never meant for you. When you try to fix, manage, or hold together situations that are outside of your control. But now you know better. And now you understand that your role is not to carry everything. Your role is to stay aligned with what keeps you clear, grounded, and at peace. And when you do that, everything else falls into place naturally. Because what belongs to you will not require you to carry unnecessary weight. It will align with the space you now have. This is the difference between living under pressure and living in clarity. And you are now stepping fully into that clarity. So as you move forward from this moment, remember this. You are not starting over. You are continuing, but from a different place. A place where the burden is no longer attached to you. A place where your awareness is stronger than your habits. A place where your peace is something you protect, not something you chase. And that changes everything. Because once you know what it feels like to live without that weight, you will not want to return to carrying it again. Not because you are forcing yourself forward, but because you have experienced something better. And that experience becomes your foundation. So move forward with that understanding. Stay aware. Stay aligned. Stay connected to what you now know is right for you. Because what hath been removed does not need to be picked up again. And what you are stepping into is meant to stay. Type "I protect my peace" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your life. Now listen carefully, because this is the moment everything comes together. You did not arrive here by accident. You did not carry everything you carried just to remain in the same place. You were brought through that season for this exact moment. The moment where the burden is no longer yours. Where the weight is no longer attached. Where the cycle that once repeated itself ends. And this is not a suggestion. This is a declaration. Before this month ends, before the days ahead unfold, what had been sitting on your life is being removed by the hand of God. Not slowly, not partially, not in a way that leaves you questioning, but in a way that is clear, undeniable, and lasting. You are not going back to that state of heaviness. You are not returning to that same mental pressure. You are not stepping back into that same emotional exhaustion. Because what has been broken will not be rebuilt. What hath been lifted will not be placed back on you. And this is where you must stand firm. Not in effort, but in certainty. Because there will be a moment very soon where you look around and realize something is different. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you respond, all of it no longer tied to what once weighed you down. And in that moment, you will know. You will know that this was real. You will know that this shift truly happened. You will know that what you carried is no longer yours. This is your confirmation. Not just that the burden is gone, but that you have stepped into a new level of alignment. A place where you are no longer surviving through pressure, but living through clarity. And as you stand in this moment, there is something you must receive fully. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not delayed. Everything that felt like it was holding you back was actually positioning you for this exact release. Every moment of pressure, every moment of confusion, every moment where you questioned how long it would last, it was all leading to this. And now you are here. This is your turning point. This is where what was heavy becomes light. This is where what was unclear becomes steady. This is where what was grinning is replaced with strength. And you do not need to force this to happen. You do not need to chase it. You only need to receive it. Because what God is doing now does not depend on your effort. It is the result of what has already been set in motion. So stand still in this moment. Not in hesitation, but in confidence. Let the release complete itself. Let the shift settle fully. Let the peace take its place without resistance. Because this is not temporary. This is not something that will fade tomorrow. This is a change that has already begun and will continue beyond what you can currently see. And as you move forward from this moment, carry this truth with you. You are no longer the one carrying the burden. You are the one walking free from it. And that freedom is your new reality. Type "IT is done" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated over your life. As this final declaration settles into your spirit, understand this deeply. What was just released over your life is not meant to stop with you. There are souls right now trapped under the same weight you just broke free from, and God is calling you to become part of their release. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And in this moment, that promise is alive and speaking directly to you. I feel this strongly rising within you now. I am stepping into divine alignment. I am becoming a vessel. I am helping carry light where there was darkness. This is not just giving. This is a prophetic act that echoes the very freedom you just received, because as you sow into this mission, you are helping break chains off lives you may never see but heaven records. Do not delay this moment. because obedience now unlocks a flow that cannot be stopped. I declare over you that as you release your seed, blessings will return to you in ways that exceed what you expect: peace, provision, clarity, and divine favor. Act now and give through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen.